The night was thick with a damp chill, the kind that seemed to seep into your bones. Mark had always dreamed of coming to Japan, the land of ancient temples, bustling streets, and a culture so rich it felt like stepping into another world. But now that he was here, everything felt different, alien, unsettling. He arrived just a few days ago, rented a small apartment in a quiet neighborhood on the outskirts of Tokyo, and took to exploring the city during the late hours when fewer people roamed the streets. He enjoyed the peaceful atmosphere, the neon lights cutting through the darkness. But there was something else that bothered him: the silence. It wasn't the pleasant kind, the kind you hear when you're alone in nature. No, this silence was suffocating, oppressive, as though it were waiting for something. It was on his third night in Japan when he first saw it. Mark had ventured out to the local 24-hour convenience store, hoping to grab some snacks and get a better sense of his new surroundings. As he walked past an alleyway that led to an old, abandoned house, he caught a glimpse of a figure standing still in the shadows. A man tall, with an oddly contorted posture. He was facing the wall, but his head was tilted back so far that it looked like it was almost facing the sky. Mark froze, instinctively pulling his jacket tighter around his shoulders. He couldn't see the man's face, only the silhouette, but there was something off about the way he stood. The air seemed to grow colder. Shaking off the chill that had crept into his spine, Mark walked quickly past the alley, not daring to look back. But as he turned the corner, he heard a sound of faint clicking noise. It was rhythmic, like footsteps, but uneven. Mark spun around, expecting to see someone following him. Nothing. The street was empty, the night air still. He brushed it off as a trick of his mind and continued on his way. That night, when he returned to his apartment, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. It was a strange unease, a sense that he wasn't truly alone. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, when he heard it. A soft tapping at the window. His heart skipped a beat. Who could be out there at this hour? He sat up, his mind racing. Slowly, he crept over to the window and peered outside, half expecting to see nothing but the dark street and flickering streetlights. But instead, there was a figure standing at the base of the building, directly beneath his window. It was the same man from earlier, his head tilted back in that unnatural way. His eyes were locked on Mark's window. Mark's breath caught in his throat. He knew something was terribly wrong, but he didn't know what it was. With trembling hands, he grabbed his phone and tried to dial for help, but the line went dead. His fingers froze on the screen. Suddenly, the tapping resumed, louder this time. It came from the window. Mark jumped back, his pulse hammering in his chest. The man had moved. No, he wasn't in the same spot anymore. He was now directly outside the window, his face inches from the glass. Mark couldn't make out his features, only the grotesque, twisted angle of his head. The tapping continued, growing more frantic. Mark's heart pounded in his ears. Without thinking, he stumbled backward, falling into the darkness of the room. The lights flickered above him, casting strange shadows that seemed to move on their own. Suddenly, the door to his apartment creaked open. Mark froze, his breath catching in his throat. Someone was inside. He turned toward the door and saw nothing at first, just the darkness. But then the figure stepped into the room. It was the same man, but now his face was visible, distorted, pale, and hollow-eyed. His lips curled into a sickening smile, and he spoke in a language Mark didn't understand. The voice was low, guttural, like it came from the depths of the earth. But then something else caught Mark's attention. From the corner of the room, a cold mist began to form, swirling like smoke. It was as if the room itself was dying. A strange, wailing sound pierced the air, like someone crying in agony. Mark spun around and saw it. A woman, her face gaunt and twisted, her long, dark hair hanging in tangled strands around her face. She was floating just above the floor, her kimono torn and blood-stained. Her eyes were wide, unblinking, but empty. She was staring directly at him, her mouth open in an eerie, silent scream. This wasn't just a man, this was a Yūrei, a restless spirit, a ghost. And the man, he was no man at all. He was the embodiment of something far darker, a servant to the malevolent force now in the room. Mark stumbled backward, his back hitting the wall. His body was frozen in place, paralyzed by the suffocating presence of the spirits. The Yūrei's lips curled into a thin, sinister smile, her mouth opening wider, wider, until it was a grotesque, unhinged maw. Her hands, long and twisted like claws, reached for him. A voice hissed in his ear, which means run away. Mark's eyes darted around the room, but no escape came. His phone lay useless on the floor. The apartment door was still open, but beyond it, there was nothing but a thick, unyielding darkness. He could feel the temperature drop further, the cold biting into his skin, until he could no longer feel his fingers. His heart raced. The tapping had stopped, but now an unnatural silence hung in the air. With a final scream of desperation, Mark ran toward the door, but as he passed the threshold, the shadows seemed to reach out and grab him. The world around him began to twist, bending and warping in impossible ways. He couldn't breathe, couldn't move. The last thing he saw was the twisted smile of the man in the alleyway, the one who had never really been a man at all. The next morning, the neighbors found Mark's apartment empty, his belongings gone, his door left wide open. The only thing left behind was a strange, unsettling noise that echoed in the silence of the building, the soft, rhythmic tapping at the walls, and a woman's whisper, just barely audible. If you enjoyed the story, subscribe for more nights under the stars and stories that chill the soul. I'll be waiting here by the fire until the next tale finds you.